A buyer offers you $50 million for your company. You've built this business for 12 years. And tonight, that number keeps just repeating. $50 million. Now, let me tell you how this story usually ends. The deal closes and the money actually reaches your bank account. But the money is only about $32 million. Not 50 million, 32 million. Nearly 18 million evaporated between the offer and the bank. And here's the part that should keep you awake. Nobody actually cheated you. Nobody broke their agreements. Every dollar that vanished left through a term sheet that you signed and didn't fully understand. Here's the truth that nobody tells founders before their first deal. The price is not the price. The headline number is what gets you to the table. What you actually keep is decided by 6 terms buried beneath it. And the buyer's deal team negotiates those terms 30 times a year. But you will do it probably only once in your life. So tonight, we fix that. One deal, one company, let's call it ABC Limited, yours. And there's an offer on the table for $50 million. We'll walk every term in order and keep running a tally. You'll watch your $50 million fall term by term to what you actually take home. And then I'll show you how much of that you could have stopped. Let's begin. Term 1, enterprise value. Enterprise value is not the cash that you get. When a buyer says $50 million, that is the enterprise value, the price of the business as a machine before even a single adjustment kicks in. But you don't take home the enterprise value. What you take home is the equity value, the actual cash that comes and lands in your bank account. And there's a bridge between the two. Almost every deal is done on a cash-free and a debt-free basis. Two things happen to your $50 million. First, the debt of your books comes off. So let's say ABC Limited carries a bank loan of $5 million. So 50 essentially becomes 45. Second, the spare cash that you have gets added back to you. Say ABC Millions $2 million in cash, 45 becomes 47. This first step is not a trick. It's just arithmetic and it's completely fair. But notice what happened before we even reached a single negotiable term. Your $50 million headline is already at $40 million reality. And this is the real lesson that runs through this whole video. When a founder says that we've agreed on a price, all they've actually agreed on is the enterprise value. The cash, the debt, the working capital, the escrow, the earnout, none of this is agreed yet. The headline is just the start of the math, not the end of it. So now update the tally. The running tally that we have after the debt and the cash is $47 million. Term 2, the working capital adjustment. This is the quietest money mover in the entire deal, and most founders don't see it coming. Here's the idea. The buyer isn't just buying your brand and your team. He's buying a business that actually runs going forward. And a running business needs a normal amount of cash trapped inside it. In customer invoices not paid, in inventory that is there on the shelf, that trapped money inside the business is called working capital. So the contract sets a target, the normal level of working capital that you need to hand over to the buyer. This target is called the peg. And the rule is dollar for dollar. If you deliver less than the peg, your price is cut by the shortfall. If you deliver more, the buyer pays you the difference in your bank account. Now watch this play out for ABC Limited. Your business on a normal day runs at about $6 million of working capital. 6 is the honest number. But at the table, the buyer's accountants study your data for the last few months based on due diligence and historical data and pick the months where working capital was naturally at the highest. Say a seasonal build-up pushed it to $8 million at a point of time. So they propose an $8 million peg and they say it on a bold voice. They say that this is just a standard working capital number. If you don't catch it, here's what happens on the closing day. You hand over the business that is genuinely normal with a $6 million working capital peg, but the peg said $8 million, so you just handed over the business with an additional $2 million of working capital. The peg said $8 million, and therefore you're $2 million short, and the price is therefore cut by $2 million. Let me say it plainly. You just lost $2 million because you treated numbers as boring. Could you have stopped it? Yes, definitely. You model the peg before signing. You bring your own 12 months of data, not let the accountant do the math. You prove that the normal number is $6 million and not $8 million. But in our story, you didn't. So you update the tally. So the running tally after the working capital peg is $45 million. Term number 3 is the escrow, also called as the holdback. Here is the buyer's fear. What the buyer thinks is that I'm about to pay tens of millions of dollars for ABC Limited. What if 6 months later a problem surfaces from before the sale? An old tax demand, a lawsuit that nobody mentioned, or something that suddenly came up. So the buyer wants to protect himself. He takes a slice of your sale price and instead of paying it to you, he parks it with a neutral third party. That money parked with a neutral third party is called an escrow. For ABC Limited, say the buyer holds back $5 million for about 18 months. If a covered problem appears, he takes his compensation out of that escrow. If nothing appears, you get the $5 million back when the period ends. Escrow is pretty normal in most deals. Every deal has one. I'm not telling you to refuse escrows, but understand what it means for you. That $5 million is yours, but you can't touch it for a year and a half, and you might never see all of it. So, three numbers here are negotiable. The amount of escrow, you need to push it down. The duration of the escrow, you need to push it shorter. And the release, can half of it come back early, say by month 9, if nothing has gone wrong? Now, I'll be honest with you because this video is about clarity and not about drama. If your business is clean, you'll most likely get your $5 million back. But on closing day, 5 million out of your 15 million is locked in a box that you can't touch for 18 months. So the tally, we don't call it lost, but we call it locked. Running the tally back, now the amount that you have in hand is 40 million that is paid now and $5 million locked in escrow for 18 months. Term number 4, the earnout. Now this is the big one, where the largest amount of money quietly disappears in the deal. And here's how it happens. You believe ABC Limited is worth $50 million. Suppose the buyer privately thinks that it's worth only $40 million. Now that is a $10 million gap. Neither of you want to walk away from the deal. So the buyer offers a bridge. He says that I'll pay you $40 million now and the final $10 million, you earn it over the next 2 years if the business hits certain targets. Now that $10 million is the earnout. It sounds fair. You're confident, so you think, of course I'll hit the targets and I'll get my full $50 million back. Here's what you must understand. An earnout is not a payment plan. It is the buyer taking the risk of the future off his shoulders and putting it on to yours. Because the day the deal closes, you still carry the risk of that $10 million not coming back to you on a business that you no longer control. So you're being asked to score the goals, but the buyer now owns the pitch, the team, and the goalpost. And now the number that should genuinely frighten you. People have studied this. Large number of deals, real deals that have been closed. Earnouts actually signed track to what actually got paid to the buyer. Across all those deals, earnouts pay on an average 21 cents to the dollar. Now apply that to ABC Limited. Your $10 million earnout, if your deal behaves like the average realistic deal, is worth about $2.1 million in cash. Nearly $8 million of your headline price was never really going to be yours. Why does this pay so badly? The buyer can cut the very budget that your targets depend on. He can merge your sales team into his. And if its earnout is measured on profit, he can control the costs and can bury your profit under his expenses. So there are 3 defenses to stop this. Defense number 1, tie the earnout to revenue, not to profits. Revenue is hard to fake. Money came in or it didn't. Profit, on the other hand, is soft. It is subject to accounting adjustments, and the buyer, unfortunately, holds the pen to it. According to research, around 60% of earnouts were tied to revenue, and only 20% of the earnouts were tied to profits. Defense number 2, get the buyer's promises in writing. No gutting of the marketing budget, no forced merging of your team, and if your money depends on performance, the buyers must be tied to. Defense number 3, add an acceleration clause. If the buyer gets acquired or goes for an IPO or gets restructured, your entire earnout must become due immediately and in full. Without it, one reorganization can erase your earnout completely and legally. In our story, the founder took the earnout the way it was offered. $10 million promised and only $2 million was realistically paid. So now strip the deal down to the truth. Of the $40 million called paid at closing, 10 of it was the earnout that was really actually worth about $2 million, which means the real certain cash in your hand is closer to about $32 million, plus the $5 million in escrow you'll probably eventually get back. Now update the tally. Look at that number really hard. The running tally is the certain cash at closing is about $32 million and $5 million in escrow that is likely to be returned in the future. Term number 5, exclusivity. And this one is sneaky because it doesn't show up till the end of the deal. It shows up right at the start in the very first offer letter, the LOI. Buried in that document is a request for exclusivity, often for 90 days. It means that for 90 days, you cannot talk to any other buyer. And it sounds harmless at the start because it sounds like formality. Unfortunately, it is not. It is one of the most expensive sentences in the entire deal. And here's why. What is the one thing that gives you, the seller, any power in this negotiation? It is the buyer's fear of losing you to somebody else. That fear is your entire leverage. It is what keeps the price up. It is what keeps the buyer moving fast and behaving well. The moment you sign exclusivity, you hand that fear away. Now, the buyer knows that you cannot go anywhere for the next 90 days. And watch what happens next. The buyer slows down. Due diligence drags on. Small problems get discovered. And then by around day 70, the buyer comes back and says, hey, we found few things. We can still do the deal, but at 45 million, not at 50 million. Now, this is called retrading. And exclusivity is what makes it possible. Because you, unfortunately, have nowhere else to go. Your other conversations are essentially dead. You can't avoid exclusivity completely. Buyers spend real money on diligence, so they'll obviously want it. But you fight three things when it comes to exclusivity. First one is keep it short, usually 30 to 45 days, not 90 days. Second one, tie it to the speed. If the buyer misses the deadlines, then exclusivity ends. And third, never sign it until the major terms like price, structure, earnout, etc. are already broadly agreed. If you sign the exclusivity early, you've given away the power before the real negotiation has even started. Term number 6, and this one is less of a clause than a discipline, the single buyer trap. Here's how most founders get into a deal. One buyer sends an email. The founder is flattered. He starts talking to that one buyer. And that entire deal happens with that one single buyer. Understand what that is. A sale with one buyer is not a sale. It is a takeover at the buyer's pace, at the buyer's price. Now think about it from the buyer's seat. If he knows that he's the only one at this table, why would he offer the best price? Why would he really move fast on the deal? And why would he soften on a single term? He wouldn't. He really doesn't have to. Now change one thing. Imagine that there are 3 buyers looking at ABC Limited at the same time. Now suddenly everything flips. Now each buyer knows that if he lowballs you or drags his feet or plays games with those terms, he loses you to the buyer sitting next to him. That competitive tension is the most powerful price raising force that you'll ever have. A serious, quiet process with even 2 or 3 buyers can lift your price into the millions. And it does something that is just as valuable. It moves every other term that we've discussed today, the working capital peg, the escrow, the earnout, the exclusivity, all of them in your favor. Because a buyer who might lose the deal is a buyer who behaves well. This is why the founder who quietly runs a process ends up in a completely different deal from a founder who simply answers one email. Same company, same year, very different outcome. So let's go back to that sleepless night, the $50 million offer that the founder received. Here's what you understand now that you didn't understand then. Watch the whole fall again. $50 million, the headline. Take off the debt and add the cash, that becomes $47 million. The inflated working capital peg quietly took $2 million, $45 million, $45 million, out of which $5 million is locked away in escrow. That becomes $40 million in closing. The $10 million earnout is realistically worth about $2 million. So strip everything down to what is genuinely in your hand on the closing day. And your $50 million company delivered around $32 million of real certain cash. Now here's what I need you to hear. Not all of that gap is a scandal. The debt, the cash bridge is all fair arithmetic. The escrow will probably come back, but a large part of that gap was not inevitable. $2 million of the working capital peg you could have kept. Most of that by modeling it before signing the deal. The earnout tied to revenue with the right covenants, you could have moved its real value from 2 million to closer to 6 or 7 million. And every term, every single one would have moved you in that direction if there had been a second or a third buyer at that table. So here's the one idea to carry into your own deal. The buyer's team will spend 90% of every conversation on the headline price. They do that on purpose because they know that that is a headline and that is the number that you emotionally feel about. And while you're staring at that number, proud, sleepless, and at $50 million, the real money that is being decided by the 6 terms that we discussed about in this video. So do the opposite of what feels natural. Spend less time celebrating the headline, spend all your time on the actual terms. The headline is the number that they offer you. The terms are the number that you actually keep. Don't sell 12 years of your life on a number someone said out loud in the first meeting. Sell it on the fine print because the fine print is the deal. And I'll see you in the next video.